Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we will be discussing Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text 62. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsah Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bhijayate. So now in the previous verses from 58 through 61, Krishna mentioned the importance of controlling the senses and how by cultivating the higher taste of Krishna consciousness, you can control the senses easily. Param društva nivartate yukta asita matparaha, like that he explained. And now in this verse, Krishna explains, in these two verses, Krishna explains what happens if you don't cultivate that higher taste. So he says here, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha. A person, Pumsaha, by Dhyayato Vishayan. Dhyaya means similar to Dhyanam, contemplation. Contemplation on what? Vishayan. Vishayan means sense objects. Like the eyes are looking for form, the skin is looking for touch, the ears are looking for sound, the tongue is looking for taste, the nose is looking for the smell. These are all sense objects. So everywhere we go, we find enough sense objects. Everywhere we see, everyone we talk to, whether we read newspapers or watch TV or go online or talk to people, every moment we are dealing with sense objects, eating, interacting with senses. So when you contemplate on a particular sense object, dhyayato vishayan, teshu sangaha upajayate. Sangha means attachment. So when you contemplate on a particular object of the sense, you start to develop some attachment for it. And from that attachment, sangat, sanjayate, kamaha, you start to develop desires, how to possess it, how to enjoy it. And from that desire, when it is not satisfied, kamat, krodho abhijayate, it manifests as anger. So see how it's a downward spiral. You start with associating with the senses, you contemplate, meditate, and you start developing attachment. That attachment starts to develop your desires, and the desire, when unsatisfied or even satisfied, the desire keeps going up, and eventually it has to result in krodha, frustration, anger. So this is the danger of not cultivating the higher taste of Krishna consciousness. This is actually a universal principle Krishna is mentioning. It's a natural principle. You get attached to something by focusing on it, even though you may not be initially attached. Like people, they say, this beer, the drink, it tastes very bad when you drink it for the first time. But you see people, they get used to it and they cultivate that habit, especially to become cool in the middle of friends circle when they are young, or when they are when they get into some social association. And once they get used to it, they get attached to it and they cannot give it up. Similarly, a sports team, for example, I remember when I was very young, small child, my father and some of the neighbors, youngsters, they used to get together and watch this game of cricket. We all know. And I used to see when I didn't have any idea at that time. And it used to go on for hours and hours, and I used to hate it. What is this going on? I was never interested. But then they kept on coming, they kept on watching, and I kept on watching. I kept on understanding the game. And gradually, see, that dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangha, that you become attached to it. And then you start to develop desire. You want the team to win, isn't it? You want India to win. Or now there are so many states, leagues, and within India there are different teams. You want a particular team to win. So like that attachment brings up desires, that which you never had. Sangat sanjayate kamaha, and kamat krodho bijayate. I remember one time we were watching in our home in India, and this game was in a very tense situation. And eventually the ball was bowled and the batsman hit, and probably they didn't win. And this youngster who was watching, he became so nervous that he broke down, and he had this, what they call in India, the fits or seizures, what we call. And somebody had to put a key and in his hand, something like that they used to do. And he was brought up, but he was so in anxiety. So sometimes people break things out of anger, do all kinds of things out of anger when something what they want doesn't happen. Kamat krodho bhijayate. So if you focus on the sense objects, you will slowly get into this kind of things. The whole advertising industry works on this principle. The whole advertising industry. Like you walk into a grocery store, a supermarket. You want to buy some kind of a soap even. So you don't know there are 10 kinds of soaps. Which one you will pick? Naturally, the one which is displayed in the TV advertisement, which is advertised by a film star or a sports star, or which is prominently shown on a billboard. Because the more you see, the more you start to develop attachment. Oh, this must be the good product. This is going to change my life. The new website you discover, people talk about, oh, this is going to change my life. I'm going to save thousands of dollars by ordering from here. It is so cheap. I discovered this. So people, this is the trick of the marketing industry. The more you show, the more you sell. This is a trick. The more you show means dhyayato vishayan. People are focusing on it. The more you show, people start to become attached to it. People start to develop desires to enjoy it. Remember one of my colleagues, he went to this place in Mexico because that place was showcased as one of the best places, cheap food, cheap accommodation, beautiful beach, and so on and so forth. And then he came back quite frustrated because he faced some issues on the road. People stopped, and somehow he avoided the danger, and the place didn't turn out to be that great. He was a vegetarian, and he faced a lot of problems, and so like that he came back quite frustrated. So what we see is actually illusory. This material world is actually illusory. Illusory happiness, just like a mirage, appears like, oh, what a great source of water from a distance. And then you become attracted, you run towards it. There is no water, it's just illusory water. So, that which does not have happiness poses itself as happiness. And we project happiness out of it in illusion and try to seek. So, in nature, there is this powerful example of a camel. So, somebody sent me a video. So, this camel, he was giving this, whatever the camel likes, this cactus, which is full of thorns. Can you believe it? Camel likes this, eating this thorny fruit, thorny leaves. And he was eating it. And suddenly he put this orange fruit along with it. The camel didn't realize he was grabbing this cactus. And then next came orange fruit, and it put it in its mouth, and immediately it threw it outside. Because it didn't get the taste that it was used to, that was full of thorns. The camel likes the thorns. Not because the thorn is tasty, no. Because when it eats the thorns, it pricks, scratches its tongue, it produces the blood, and it's tasting its own blood, and that's what the camel likes. So, like that, you try to enjoy a particular thing, it's not that thing which is giving you happiness. You are projecting your happiness onto that thing and try to squeeze that happiness, even though that particular thing is not actually a source of enjoyment. You project your, the soul has this tendency to always be happy and seek enjoyment and happiness. Anandamayo bhyasat. Wherever the soul goes, we try to squeeze enjoyment. We don't stay calm, isn't it? Whenever new place we go, we try to make friends, we try to explore, we try to go to places, we try to find good restaurants and some association. Why? Because we are always seeking ananda. Whatever meager thing, lackluster thing, mediocre thing we find, we try to become happy with it. That is our nature. But the material world does not provide what we want to enjoy. Like one Acharya says, Tatala Saikate Varibindu Sama. Let's say you are in a desert and you are thirsty. And how much water you need? You can drink a gallon of water, isn't it? And how much rain you need for that heat. But somebody comes and say one drop of rain comes and falls. It is neither enough for solving your heat problem, neither enough for solving your thirst problem. It's like that. This material world, the amount of pleasure is like a drop where the spirit soul is seeking so much of happiness. That is why it is illusory. There is pleasure, but it is illusory because it is posing as if it will solve your problem. It will give you spiritual happiness, the amount of happiness you need as a spirit soul. It will come in that shape. No, but it won't. Prabhupada was once discussing this. He was explaining this verse. They were conversing. He was giving this beautiful example. So this couple of disciples, Govinda Dasi and I believe Naranarayan Prabhu, they were making some exhibits. So they were working on a plaster of Paris material, and then they would make some exhibits for presenting Bhagavad Gita teachings and things like that. So Prabhupada said, see this plaster of Paris that they are making. Right now it's just a piece of whatever matter. And now they will start to make into an object, a man or a woman, and then you color it and you dress it, and now suddenly you find it so attractive, isn't it? It's nothing, it's just a piece of matter. But the moment the external painting and the shape that you give, the dress you give, it makes it so attractive, isn't it? So, like that, he said, actually, our bodies are made of mucus, bile, stool, blood, urine, all these kind of things. But the external makeup, the external packaging the Maya produces of an attractive woman, for example, it bewilders the mind of even a great man. So the power of the illusory attraction. You forget everything, the reality. So coming to that point, in the purport, Prabhupada explains how the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. And he gives this wonderful example. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi. But Haridasa easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above mentioned verses of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. Prabhupada also gives the example of comparison. So this Haridas Thakur was a very young man, but he took to Krishna consciousness and he became so attached to Krishna that even when so much attractive Maya Devi herself came to bewilder him, to attract him, but he was not even flinched. He was so focused on, he was deriving so much bliss in chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he didn't even budge. At the same time, Prabhupada gives a comparison to that of a very elevated position, a Devata position, even Lord Shiva. These demigods, they conspire. They wanted a progeny from Lord Shiva so that the son can be very powerful to defeat the demons. They wanted the commander in chief. So they thought only if Lord Shiva, through his semen, a son produced, can become very powerful. So they send Parvati Devi, and eventually the union produces Kartikeya. So there Prabhupada mentions how Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result Kartikeya was born. But he compares it to Haridas Thakur, when he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridasa easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. So, of course, Shiva is a great personality, but the comparison is not between two persons, but the position. Even if you are in a position, great position does not necessarily guarantee you to be great. Position does not guarantee, but the process guarantees. Even if you are a person low born, but if you practice Krishna consciousness, the process is so powerful that you can easily conquer the senses. Durdanta indriya kala sarpa patali prodghata damstrayate. So this indriya is like a kala sarpa. It bites. The moment you see something attractive, it bites you. Just like a serpent bite. And the Vishaya also refers to Visha. Visha means poison. Sense objects bite and it's poison. But for a devotee, the bite is not as powerful. Why? Because let's say a serpent whose fangs are removed, and the serpent bites also, there is no poison because the fangs are removed. So that's what, even a devotee who is practicing Krishna consciousness, for him the effect of that poison of snake bite or the bite of the senses is not as strong as it is for an ordinary person. An ordinary person cannot give up things easily. You see, people come to temple, they are, oh, Prabhu, I cannot give up coffee. I cannot give up tea. Oh, I cannot give up this. I cannot give up that. But for a devotee, it's nothing. It won't even register. Somebody is enjoying a party. Somebody is going to a restaurant or a movie or whatever party, whatever they are doing. The devotee will, oh, what kind of waste of time? Because the devotee is enjoying nice association of devotees in the temple, nicely partying in the temple, nicely enjoying the kirtan, having nice prasadam in the temple, deriving bliss in chanting the holy names of the Lord. It will feel insignificant, repulsive. So that is the power of Krishna consciousness. So therefore Prabhupada concludes, one who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. So the other powerful takeaway from this is that just like you contemplate on the senses and you become attached to it, you start to develop desires for it. The same principle can be applied for Krishna consciousness. Initially, you may not have taste, but you contemplate on Krishna conscious things. You don't have taste for chanting, but you start to chant. You start to hear the name. You will develop attachment for it. You will develop desire for it. You start to read Prabhupada's books. You don't have taste. You don't even understand many things. But you keep on doing it, even one line a day, one shloka a day, one page a day. Page by page, you can become a sage. Guaranteed. Because this is a formula, natural formula. You can use this formula to overcome material things. The same formula which will drag you down, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha, the same formula if you use for Krishna, it will elevate you. Make a habit to come to temple. You become attached to it. Make a habit to perform on service for Krishna. You become attached to it. Develop desire. How I can improve in the service. So like that, everything related to Krishna consciousness, if you focus, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate, you'll start to develop attachment. That is why sometimes a devotee may be mistaken. Why he is so attached? Why he is acting so attached like an ordinary karmi, ordinary person? Like Prabhupada, when he came to the West, the movement was exploding. And he came to Detroit and they wanted to, they were looking for a location to buy a place for temple. So this one devotee, Ambarish Prabhu, the grandson of Ford, he found a palatial estate that was the Fisher Mansion. So they went to look at it, and Prabhupada immediately liked it. It was, designed and built so intricately. He said, who would not like such a building? And then somebody said, oh, but Prabhupada, this Ambarish doesn't like it. Why? Because, it's so materially opulently built, it's Maya. But Prabhupada said, Maya is also Krishna's energy. If you use it for Krishna, it is not Maya. If you use it for your sense gratification, it is Maya. And then, so they went to see the man who owned it. He was sitting by the pool, and he was materialistic and greedy and wanted as much money as he could get. But then there was one problem about that place. The neighborhood was bad. So how he could get that much money, nobody knew. So they were demanding like $350,000. So Prabhupada went. See, all this while devotees were thinking, so Prabhupada was like an ordinary karmi trying to deal and trying to negotiate. And Prabhupada was negotiating. He went, oh, we say, oh, see, we are all mendicants, we are monks, we don't have much money. And he basically suggested the man to give the building for free. And the man was like, of course, he was cool, but he was like, oh, no, I cannot do that. And the real estate agent was like, oh my God, I'm not going to get any commission and all that. So anyway, that they settled one for some price much less than what they were asking, and Prabhupada had his disciples come up with that, and they ended up purchasing the land, and that became a beautiful temple of Krishna. So in this way, you see, you do everything for Krishna, then Maya won't touch. But if you do everything in Maya, you will become so degraded. So this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. The same formula on the material field you apply for Krishna, you become successful. So in other words, without Krishna consciousness, this material world is a losing cause. But with Krishna consciousness, this material world can help us progress towards Krishna. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments? You can feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Prem